And we're back. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Before we get into the topic of today's video, and trust me, it's a good one, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsor. Again, we are self-sponsoring again today. Gotta keep up the momentum, okay? Today's video is brought to you by Graduating with Honors, Mastering the Police Academy, okay? Don't just let the police academy happen to you. One of the biggest things in law enforcement is that your reputation starts day one, and I'm talking about day one of the academy. This book will break down every aspect of the academy, teach you how to be a standout cadet, and get you started with leadership. Teach you the things you need to be a leader in the academy, help you stand out so that you can graduate with honors. All right, that's our sponsor, link down below. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so as you guys can tell by the title of this video, all right, rookie police officer buys first home, a cautionary tale. So the purpose of today's video is to tell my story and the mistakes that I made as a rookie police officer when I was buying my first house. My hopes is that, if you're buying your first house, you're a rookie officer, you're an applicant, you're a cadet, and you're thinking about getting your first house upon graduation, that you take these things into consideration so that you don't get screwed over like I did. And truthfully, I've always prided myself on doing the most research possible, and I thought that I had a good idea of what I was doing, and I did not at all. So, jumping right into it, let's back it all the way up to when this first started. So before I actually get into the story, I kind of have to set the stage of where I was, where my family was, and what was going on. So I was 25 at the time, a pretty new 25, fresh out of the military, all right, where I had done 2 or 3 deployments. One of the years I was gone for like 288 days out of the full 365 calendar year. So I had been sacrificing a lot, working hard. I had been putting in a ton of police applications, kind of timing it so that when I got out, I could fall right into a job. My wife was pregnant and due to be expecting later that year. I got picked up by my current agency, and I was slated to start the academy in November. So straight from the military, straight into the academy, no breaks, work hard, bust that, graduate, go through FTO, do all of that. And so I had a period of about 5, almost 6 years where I didn't really have a break. I've been putting in a ton of work, and I kind of wanted something to show for all of that work and all of that sacrifice that I had been putting in for the past 6, almost 7 years. Enter us getting our first house. Now, I know this isn't the same for everybody out there, but for me and where I grew up, how I grew up, the people I grew up around, just the fact that I was able to get my first home was a big deal. Nonetheless, the fact that I was able to get my first home by 25, also a big deal. Where I come from, to some people and how they grew up, this is probably normal. It's probably not a big deal. But again, for how I grew up, in the area I grew up, it was a big deal. I understood that, and I felt proud about that. I was emotional about that, right? And I wanted to show that all the hard work I had been putting in, where so many people doubted me, going into the military, some people doubted me going into law enforcement. I wanted to show that, hey, this is all the hard work I put in, and this is the result of it. So the very first mistake that I made is that I was emotional about the house buying process. Now, look, it goes without saying that my wife was already emotional about the house buying process herself, right? So if you're in a relationship with boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, husband, wife, whatever it is, whatever your orientation, doesn't matter. At least one of you have to be objective and not get sucked into the emotional process that is buying your first home. But we were both sucked in. And that made us just ripe targets to be suckers. And that's exactly what happened. So let me walk you through this, right? I really had no one I could call to, walk me through my first home buying process. Plus, we had moved to a state where none of our family, we were out here on our own. Okay. At the time, I was still a new young officer, so I had the stress of work going on. It was just a ton of stuff. We had to find a real estate agent. Ended up being a great guy. We still work with him today. But he was actually a pretty new real estate agent when we met him. I think he had probably only had like a year of experience being a real estate agent. So we kind of meshed and melded together with us both being newbies at what we were doing. So again, that left us open to be taken advantage of a lot as well. So, we went through the house buying process. We found homes, blah, 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 blah. We ended up selling on a nice upper middle class, low, high class area. Someplace that we shouldn't be. But in my mind, I was like, man, I've worked so hard for this many years. I know my credit score is right. I know I got plenty of money for down payment. I know that I'm also, a veteran, so I get, the VA home loan and the low down payment, no down payment thing. I was like, I want a reward for the amount of work that I put in up until this point. I want that to be evident when you see the home. That was a mistake.
I immediately regret this decision.
That was a mistake. So we ended up going with a new home, and we decided to build our house from scratch. And I'm going to say, as a first-time home builder, unless there's some very particular things that are going on, as a first-time home builder, building your home from scratch isn't really the best way to go, in my opinion. Based off of my experience. Here's why. So we settled on a builder, Gahan, and we settled on the home floor plan called the Villanova. The Villanova was about a single-story home, 3,000 square feet, 3-car garage, like 12-foot ceilings throughout the home. Beautiful. It was a beautiful house. We'll post pictures. You'll see them popping up around there. Beautiful home. We built that from scratch. But here's the problem that I didn't know. When you build from scratch, everything that goes into that home costs. So, if you've ever gone to a new neighborhood, you walked in and you go to that first home in the little subdivision, it's the model home and it looks amazing and really gets you sold on the house. Well, initially, that's what we thought we were going to get. Come to find out, there was over $120,000 worth of upgrades in that model home. And unless we chose those specific things at the design center, then we weren't going to get them. We were going to get the base model. And the base model Villanova was ugly, to say the least. Like vomit tile, piss poor carpet. I mean, it looked nothing like the model home. And so that was a big shock for us. But before I get too deep into that, let me kind of backtrack a little bit to tell you what happened. So again, we were 25, young. We're 25 years old, and we are in the model home talking with the little sales representative that sits in there. older lady, nice lady. And she truly thought that we weren't able to afford the home that we were looking at until our approval came back and it said we were approved for like over $500,000. Like I said, we put in work up until this point. Our credit was tight. Our debt to income ratios were tight. Everything was tight work. We were ready to make a move. And we got approved for over $500,000. That's not how much we spent on the house. I wasn't that dumb, but I was still pretty dumb. So we settled on the Villanova, and I think the base price of the home was, I don't know, I think it was like $320 something, $329. We ended up tacking on quite a few more thousands to that at the design center, which segues back into this next part. So like I was saying, the model home in which you get base are so far apart from each other, it's ridiculous. Specifically, 120 grand apart from each other. We didn't like the base model. So they send you to the design center. They got something for you. Right? They got the design center. And in the design center, their whole goal is to separate you from as much of your money as possible and hide it behind the fact that you don't have to pay anything up front. It just gets rolled into the mortgage. But they do this, and luckily the little bit of BS meter that I had at that time was kind of going up because, I mean, they would charge for everything. You want a specific type of outlet. Oh, that's only an extra $800. You want a, little media center thing where the cables get fed behind the wall so you can mount the TV. Oh, that's only an extra $1,200. You want wood floors through this much of the house. Oh, that's only 16 grand. You don't see it though. It's just gonna get rolled into the mortgage. Now, one of the things that we did look up on is that just based on the time of the year, which is for the end of the year, they had a few deals going on where they gave us like so many thousands of dollars credit to use in the design center. We used that on the floors. I think we still ended up spending almost $40,000 in the design center. So that the end price of the home that we paid for was like around like $350, $360, something like that. It's a lot, but we could have spent a lot more because we were in there and they were trying to upsell us. And we were like, we don't know if we want to spend that much. They're like, well, this couple just spent like 100 grand. So there are people in there being duped. But here's something that we didn't know. So yes, at the design center, the majority of the price gets rolled into the mortgage. That is true, but this is something they didn't tell us until after the fact, something we didn't know. When you go to the design center and you're building a home from the ground up, you're going to have to put a big earnest money check down for those designs that you pick in the design center, like a percentage. And their justification for that is they're building the home specifically for how you like it. And if you were to back out of the home buying process or not be approved, then it would take them longer to sell it versus one of their inventory homes because you chose everything to your liking and your specifications. So you had to pay for that. And we paid. I think I had to put down like $6,000 or $7,000 just to pick our designs at the design center. Not to mention we spent the extra $40,000. So there was that. That already hit us there. We go through the whole building process, and it was okay. We tried to stay on top of. We tried to stay on top of everything that was going on. So, we did the pre-build inspections. We did the midway inspection. We did the final inspection, of course. We did the walkthrough. We checked for this. We checked for that. We checked for this. We checked for that. And at the time, I really thought, aside from the extra money that was coming up that needed to be spent here and there, I really thought that we were making the best decision. So when you go through the home buying process, again, for those of you who own homes and you've been through this, and you guys are experts, keep in mind, this was our first time and we really had nowhere to turn. We thought we were doing the best research that we could at the time. And so we were kind of in this like comfortable state. We're just really, really excited to be having a big house in a really nice neighborhood where a lot of people retire. We were setting up here as our first home. So we were super excited about this. Really emotionally involved in building our own first house. We had pictures when it's just a slab, just a lot. A little construction piece was up, blah, blah, blah. We'd go there all the time. We were emotionally invested, which blinded us from looking at the numbers. And so when you go through a home buying process, right, there's going to be a point where they send you the little mortgage sheet, right? It's kind of what you're expected to pay. Now, we didn't really know how to read this document. No one really sat down with us and explained this document. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just saying that if you're going through the process of buying your first home, when you get that mortgage sheet and it breaks down, you know, how much you're going to be paying a month, and your home insurance, if you have PMI, whatever, and you don't understand what you're looking at, you need to get with someone to break that down for you. Because this was our second critical mistake. Or third. I would say the second was probably building a home from scratch, from the slab up, and not buying an inventory home from a new builder. So I would say that this was the third mistake that we made, was not understanding that mortgage sheet. So I looked at the mortgage sheet. My wife looked at the mortgage sheet. And we saw that we were getting pretty much a 3,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, blah, blah, blah home. And we were only going to have to pay $1,921 a month, all in. So for mortgage and home insurance and everything. That's the number we saw. Like, it was like the way they did it, that's the way it was highlighted. I saw some other numbers on there. I had no idea. I thought it was just like for closing costs, whatever. We signed it. We moved on. We're like $1,921 a month. Shoot, we could have got a bigger home. You know, we were kind of, in our mind, we thought that we were being pretty responsible and conservative with getting basically a $360,000 home. And we were approved for quite a bit more. But then looking at that, we were like, oh man, we could have, like, nope, we're happy with this. We can definitely more than afford this mortgage payment. Everything's good. So one of the things, big step, one of the things that I want to insert here, kind of like a little side piece, is that if you don't listen to us and you do build your first home from the ground up, congratulations. It's an amazing feeling. I don't fault you for it. I'll say one of the funny things that happened to us was that I started getting close towards closing and the house wasn't done yet. And because we were so young and because it was our first home, and it was very obvious by how many times that we were there, how many times we would swing by the model home and talk to the sales rep, that we were very emotionally involved and we were very excited to move into our first home, and we wanted to be in our first home for Christmas. They thought that they could use that against us and pressure us into signing off on the house even though things weren't ready. I mean, they were trying to get us to sign off on the house when there were like broken windows, broken doors, and their whole thing was that, oh, they were going to fix it after the fact. They were going to come in after we signed and take care of all those things. Now, like I said, we got bent over. We got bent over coming into this house, and we damn sure got bent over exiting this house. And we were pretty wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, but I was born recently, I wasn't born yesterday. We told them to screw off. And we're like, if y'all can get it done so quick, then you guys need to get it done before closing, or we can just push the closing back. We're not in that much of a rush that we're going to accept a home that had broken windows, broken doors, missing things. It was really bad. When we did that final walkthrough, it was ridiculous. The amount of things that were damaged, and they were trying to have us sign off on the home. So, if you are building your home from scratch and they're trying to pressure you, don't do it. They will figure it out because they want to get to closing. Don't sign and expect them to come in afterwards. Important. So, let's get to the point where my wife and I really knew we were screwed. I'm talking about we knew it. And I will never forget it. Let me paint it for you. So, house is done, blah, blah, blah. They end up fixing the doors. They end up fixing the windows, all this stuff. And it's closing day. So we go to the little title office. They had snacks and all this. It was nice. They were excited. They were excited. And I had reason to say that they were more excited than we were. And I should have known then. I should have known then. I'm like, why the hell are y'all so happy? Why the hell are y'all so excited? I was going to find out. So we sit at this table. It's me, my wife, I think a real estate agent was on this side. And on the other side of the table were the title people. And then in between us was this just massive stack of paperwork. And they handed us the 2 pens, asked us if we needed anything to drink. Are you comfortable? Let's get going. So, a lot of stuff. We had to, boom, the Science Center stuff. Where our check and earnest monies were going to. Blah, 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 da, 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 da. And then we're signing. We get to what the monthly payment is going to be. And I will never forget this. We're sitting there, and I get to that page. So we're just, you're just signing and initial and signing initial, kind of like a robot, right? You're on autopilot. Da, 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 da. And I get to that thing, and I stop. And my wife's kind of looking in from the side, right? Because I'm signing, and she signs it. And she sees that. And I look over to her. And the fear that I saw in her eyes on how are we going to be able to pay for this? Can we pay for it? It crushed my heart because I realized in that moment that I had been had.
We got a deal.
Not to pay the toll. Take a gulp and take a breath and go ahead and sign the scroll. Flotsam jetsam, now I've got her, boys.
They got us. They took advantage of us. They played into it being our first house. And they were setting it up so that we could be spending a boatload of money. That mortgage payment on there, all in, was over $3,100 a month. Over $3,100 a month. And in that moment, I had absolutely no idea. Remember, we thought we were going to be paying $19.21. That was our fault. It was our fault. I take 100% responsibility for it. It was our fault. But damn, seeing $3,100 when you're expecting $19.21, there's a whole lot of fuckery in between that. All right, and see what happened was something that we didn't factor in. And I'm sure it was on there because they have to do it legally, but we didn't understand the forms that we were reading. But shame on us, right? We honestly thought that these people, the seller at Meritage, our agent, the title companies, the builder, we honestly thought that these people had our best interest in mind as well as their own. They didn't. And so what got factored in was the property tax. Now, I looked at a lot of things when we were picking a spot for our first home. I looked at the growth of the area. Was it going to be growing? What were they building? How were property values trending? I picked a good spot. I was looking at schools in the area. Because like I said, we were just having our first child. Man, I picked a good spot. But one of the things that I personally did not know to look for, but I know now, was property tax. And living in the nice area that we were living in, the property taxes were ridiculous. Insane. I think over 3.5%. It's ridiculous. It was a huge part of what ballooned that mortgage payment up to over $3,000. Those property taxes were killer. And I remember looking at that number, looking at my wife's shock, and she was like, "Can we afford this?" And in my head, in my heart, I'm like, I have no idea. But they tell you beforehand, all the bad things will happen if you, back out of the contract, all this money that you're just going to lose, right? Like tens of thousands of dollars. And I look up across the table at where the title people are sitting. And I see like the most evil, most, got you, smiling gleam in their faces, in their eyes, in their demeanor. And I literally, in that moment, no longer felt like a first-time home buyer, and I felt like someone who was signing their life away. That's what it felt like. Like, we left that title office with our keys feeling sick to our stomachs because we had no idea how we were going to be able to afford over a $3,100 a month mortgage payment. It was terrible. It was terrible. We weren't happy about it at all. And that moment right there when we first got those house keys that day kind of set the tone for the whole time that we lived in that home. And we're no longer in that home now. That's going to be a different video. But it set the tone. I remember maybe 2 days upon moving in, we had someone from the water company come on. It's like, "Hey, so you guys going to activate your thing or we're going to be shutting off your water?" We had no idea. None of this stuff was explained. We were getting slapped across the head at every turn. Just slap. Bah, bah, bah. It was always something. It was always something for a new home, for paying what we paid for it and having to pay what we paid monthly. It was a headache. And we stayed in the home about 2 years before I finally got to the point where I was just like, this is eating too much into our finances. Like, we can't plan around this because we have this big mortgage payment. We can't invest in things because we have this big mortgage payment. This thing is eating us alive. Now, one of the things that paid off huge was the research that I did on the neighborhood. Because of that, and because of the extreme growth that our neighborhood experienced, we were able to sell our home in 2 years for profit and still get out of it with a check. It wasn't a big check. It's definitely not the biggest check that you can get from selling your home, but we needed to get out of that house like yesterday. We never should have been in the house in the first place. When we were living in the house, we really only used probably about a fifth of it. We'd either be in our room, the media room, or the kitchen. And it was massive. It was a beautiful home. It was truly, truly a beautiful house. But it was a little bit above where we needed to be for our first home. And remember I told you at the beginning, we got screwed on the way in, and we got screwed on the way out. When we sold the house, we got the lowest. Our check that we got was the least amount out of everyone. The real estate agents got paid more than us, so that's the listing. And the buyer's agent, they got a bigger check than us. And the title company got a bigger check than us. Everybody got a bigger check than us. And we're the people that had been paying the mortgage for 2 years. That huge mortgage and all those damn taxes. And everyone involved in that process ended up getting a bigger piece out of our home than we got. And I vowed before. I vowed the day when we first got the keys. Never again. That would never happen again. You got me once. But I am going to make a strategic and strained and consistent effort to never be taken advantage of like that again when I'm spending the amount of money that we spent on that house. Hence why we're in a new spot. And we're getting another spot. And we got some other things. All because we sold the house. But again, that's a story for another day when we talk about buying our second house and what selling our first home did for us and what we learned and how we applied that when we bought house number 2. So that's really it. Again, some of you guys out there, I know, real estate wizards, never made a mistake, right? You came out the womb knowing everything there is to know. You probably own 1 million houses, right? Each one of them, you just knew what to do, where to get it, how to spend the money. I'm not talking to you. Please don't leave a comment. I don't need to hear it. Look, we were young. We made a mistake, huge mistake. Costs. It set us back probably, who knows? Set us back probably over 60, 70 grand all in and set us back years on our finances and our retirement goals. It derailed us. It threw us off track. But we made a decision to get out of that bad deal and get into a better one. And that's opened up a ton of things for us. I hope that someone out there, some rookie, anybody who's getting their first home, takes something from this and you're smarter about it than we were on our first house. The big takeaways that I want you to remember. If it's your first time, you're buying your first house, I would suggest, my own personal opinion, don't build from scratch. There's a lot more opportunity in new built homes that are on inventory from the builder. That means that the builder already built them. Okay? A second big thing I want you to take away. If you do decide to build from scratch, don't fall for the design center trap. All right? They are going to get you, their whole goal, I feel, it may be, it may not be, but what I feel and what I saw, that their whole goal is to get you to spend more money on the design center than your home would actually be worth. Like, just because you go to the design center and you put $50,000 to $100,000 worth of upgrades and trinkets and bullshit into your house, that does not mean that you are going to get that same value out of it when it comes time to sell it. It does not work like that. All right. Oftentimes, the stuff that they're offering at the design center is overpriced, and they're trying to get you because they lull you into this false sense of security, saying that, oh, it's just going to get folded into your mortgage. Really, when you do the math, it's only 8 to 10 cents per day. Yeah, but here's the thing they're not telling you. It does get folded into your mortgage, but you do have to pay that earnest money, which is a percentage of how much you spent there. And because it gets rolled into your mortgage, typically people get 30-year mortgages, you are paying astronomically more over that 30-year mortgage cycle for some sockets and some lights and some gutters on your house than what they would be if you just bought them after the fact and maybe put it on like a credit card or something. That's how they get you. So that'd be the second biggest thing that I tell you to look out for. The third biggest thing that I tell you to look out for is know your numbers. Know what you are reading, know what you are signing, and if you don't understand it, either have them or more preferably someone else outside who's familiar with those things, go over it with you. Know what you are signing early on, because that is the easiest time for you to back out, and it will cost you the least. Okay, it will cost you the least. When you put that little option money down, right? Maybe it's $1,000 tops. I promise you, losing $1,000 feels a lot better than being duped into paying over $3,000 a month for 2 years. You can just run the numbers yourself, not counting earnest money, not counting any of the other monies that we had to pay. All right, it's cheaper just to know what you're doing first up, and be like, hey, if this doesn't feel right and you don't feel good buying the home, then back out early. There's gonna come to a point where you sign all these legally binding documents. You're gonna be sitting there staring at that big number like, what the heck? And it's going to cost you then at that point way more money to back out than it is to just go forward. So that would be the third biggest takeaway. It's Xavier with CRC. I really hope that someone gets something from this. This is my story. That's my first home buying experience. I know it's not the big rosy pedaled thing that so many people make their first home buying experience out to be. That was not the case. But from that, oh, did I learn. I learned, and I have become so much better at the process of buying a house. I can't wait to tell you about house number 2. All right. So before I get out of here, as always, if you like this video, then click the like button. All right. If you like hearing what I got to say, you like seeing this mug on your screen all the time, then subscribe. All right. Leave a comment. If you had a bad first home buying experience, or you know someone who went through it on their first home, leave a comment down below. I love to hear about it. We can talk about it, pick each other's brains. I can't wait to tell you how I've used everything that I've learned from that to do so much better when it comes to buying real estate and properties. All right. So tune in, subscribe, stay blessed. I'll see you guys on the next one.